Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this debate today, but I want to ask my colleague a question about the Prime Minister's comments. Prime Minister was out in Western Canada last week, 10 days ago or whatever, and he gave us a story about how committed he was to the Alberta energy industry and Saskatchewan energy industry. And then, of course, this pipeline story is broken, and since then he's talked a lot but hasn't done anything. But I was very concerned when I heard about his conversation in France, that he goes to another country and he gives a completely different story than he's given in Canada. So trying to leave an impression in Western Canada, but goes to France and say, you know, that energy industry I talked about last week that I said I supported, I actually don't support it. I'd really like to shut it down as quickly as possible. I'm just wondering if the member can tell us a little bit about what does he think about leadership that actually says one thing to one group of people when he wants to try to get their support, and something completely else when he's on an international stage and he thinks that Canadians aren't listening to him.
Good job.
The honourable member for Barrie-Innisfil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that is an excellent question. I think it's symptomatic of a problem that this Prime Minister has with respect to saying one thing and actually doing another. And we've said that. We saw this. We saw this during the election campaign when he talked about, you know, this will be the last time that an election is held under first past the post. He backtracked on that. There are multiples of other things that he's backtracked on, Mr. Speaker. But on the issue of pipeline, and this is what is really concerning to me, is the fact that he stands up in front of Canadians, he goes to Fort McMurray, he speaks to the Alberta oil sector, he speaks, as he says, to all Canadians about the fact that this pipeline will be built. Can you imagine the Premier of British Columbia, the Premier of Alberta, and the Prime Minister getting together? I don't have a lot of confidence in the fact that any single one of them want this pipeline to be built, quite frankly. And so the Prime Minister, in all his bravado, again, he stands up there and he says one thing. There is no chance, Mr. Speaker, that this Prime Minister and this Liberal government want a pipeline built. They want it gone, because they think that our natural resource sector, the people who depend on it, the people who are employed by it, are dirty, Mr. Speaker, and that's the fact of this. And so they can stand up there all they want and say, this is what we want a pipeline built. The reality and the truth is, no, they don't.